Hello everyone, welcome to our biology session B8 photosynthesis. In this unit, you will be able to learn photosynthesis in details, the rate of photosynthesis, and the factors that affect the rate of photosynthesis, how plants use glucose, and at the end, making the most of photosynthesis. Here, you're going to learn about mostly the photosynthesis. You will have 10 questions, multiple choice, for 15 minutes. Let's take a look in details. Introduction to the photosynthesis. Which parts of a plant are its organs? The flower, the leaves, the stem, and the roots. Let's take a look at their functions now. Flowers involved in the reproduction, leaves where photosynthesis takes place, the stem that support the plant and allows substances to be exchanged between the leaves and the roots that absorb water and minerals for the plant and which anchor the plant in the ground. Where does photosynthesis take place in a leaf? Let's take a look into these functions of waxy cuticle, palisade mesophyll, and the stomata. To prevent the water loss of a plant is the function of waxy cuticle. In the palisade mesophyll, where most of the photosynthesis takes place in the plant, and the function of stomata is to allow carbon dioxide to enter in the leaf and oxygen to leave the leaf. What are the reactants and the products of photosynthesis? The reactants of photosynthesis, or the raw material of photosynthesis, are water and carbon dioxide, and the products are glucose and oxygen. Let's take a look at the reaction now. The reaction of photosynthesis, carbon dioxide plus water produces glucose and oxygen. If you explain this, chlorophyll absorbs the sunlight to convert carbon dioxide and water into glucose and oxygen. Glucose is the food of plant that they can make themselves. Here, light is not a chemical, so it is not a reactant or a product. It is needed to convert the carbon dioxide and water into glucose and oxygen. Here, take a look into the symbol equation of photosynthesis. CO2 plus H2O produces C6H12O6 plus O2. Let's pause the video and try yourself to balance the equation. There you go. Most of you got this right. So 6 carbon dioxide reacts with 6 water that produces 1 glucose molecule and produces 6 oxygen molecule. Now pause the video and try these questions yourself. There you go. The first one is carbon dioxide reacts with water in the presence of chlorophyll that absorb the light to convert the glucose and produces oxygen. Second one, the energy needed for photosynthesis comes from light. The energy is absorbed by a green pigment called chlorophyll. If the temperature is decreased, the rate of photosynthesis will decrease too. Well done to all of those who got these answers right. What is the purpose of photosynthesis? Why plant needs to do photosynthesis? To produce glucose, to produce their food on their own. Oxygen is a waste product during this process. Although it is useful for aerobic respiration, which takes place in plants all the time. So the respiration takes place in plant 24/7 all the time. The photosynthesis takes place when they have light during daytime mostly. Now pause the video and try yourself these questions. The reactants of photosynthesis, carbon dioxide and water, and the products are glucose and oxygen. The chemical word equation are here. The function of oxycuticle, the palisade mesophyll function, and the stomata. Why is light needed for photosynthesis? Photosynthesis is an endothermic reaction, means it's taking energy. Light energy provides the energy needed to make glucose. And the balanced equation of photosynthesis is 6CO2 plus 6H2O produces C6H12O6 plus 6O2. The factors that affect photosynthesis. What do plants need for photosynthesis to take place? They need carbon dioxide, light, a suitable temperature, and chlorophyll plus water. What happens if a plant has a lot of these things? The photosynthesis goes quickly. What happens if plant doesn't have enough of these things? In that case, photosynthesis goes slower. We need to know how carbon dioxide concentration, light intensity, temperature, and chlorophyll levels affect the rate of photosynthesis, how we can tell what changes occur, and how and why each causes a change. Let's take a look in details now. A student did an experiment to see the effect of carbon dioxide concentration on the number of oxygen bubbles produced by pondweed. If we describe the graph, as the concentration of carbon dioxide increases, the number of bubbles of oxygen produced also increases. This happens until 0.8 units of carbon dioxide, when the number of bubbles produced stops increasing. Looking at the trend of this graph, which is describing how changes to the independent variable affect the dependent variable. In this experiment, independent variable, the thing the student changes, are the carbon dioxide concentration, and the dependent variable are the number of oxygen bubbles produced. Why is this? If we break it down into different questions, what is carbon dioxide in photosynthesis? That is a reactant that is needed for photosynthesis. What is oxygen in photosynthesis? A product that is made during photosynthesis. What does the production of oxygen indicate? The photosynthesis is taking place. And if we count the number of bubbles, it will give us the information or how fast or how slow the photosynthesis is taking place. What does the production of more oxygen indicate? More photosynthesis is taking place means more quickly, and the rate of reaction is increased too. If we consolidate all this so far, let's answer these 1 to 6 questions. Pause the video and try yourself now. Very well done to those who got these answers right. Let's take a look. The first one, the second one, third one, fourth, fifth, and the last one. Let's move on now. How does the amount of chlorophyll affect the rate of photosynthesis? These two plants are different due to the color of these leaves. The leaves of the plant on the left contain less chlorophyll, chlorophyll absorbs the light for photosynthesis, so plants with less chlorophyll photosynthesize at a lower rate. So you can say the amount of chlorophyll affects the rate of photosynthesis. If a plant has more chlorophyll, the photosynthesis rate will be faster compared to a plant that contains less amount of chlorophyll. How does temperature affect the rate of photosynthesis? Photosynthesis is an enzyme-controlled reaction. So the temperature increases, the rate of reaction also increases until it reaches the optimum temperature. After this point, the enzyme started to denature, and therefore the rate of reaction rapidly decreases. So in summary, if the temperature crosses the optimum level, in that case that is more than 37 degrees, the rate of photosynthesis starts to decrease because the enzyme's structure will change, enzyme will denature, it will alter the shape, therefore the active site won't be able to fit into the substrate and they can not be broken down any further. Factors that affect photosynthesis. First question for you, draw these 3 diagrams in your exercise book and identify the factors of each graph. Plots in there. There are 3 factors: carbon dioxide concentration, temperature, and light intensity. For each graph, you need to describe what the graph shows and in extension explain why each of the factors indicated in question 1 have the impact described in question 2. Let's pause the video and try yourself now. Here you go, the answer. The first one is the light intensity. Second graph shows carbon dioxide concentration. And the last one is temperature. First two, it could be other way around. Now look at as the light intensity and carbon dioxide concentration increases, the rate of photosynthesis increases until a certain point. After that, even though the light intensity and carbon dioxide concentration increases, there is no effect on rate of carbon dioxide increasing. But it doesn't decrease. The reason why? Because light intensity and carbon dioxide is not a limiting factor afterwards. The limiting factor could be temperature, could be the amount of chlorophyll. In both cases, the rate of photosynthesis stops increasing because they are no longer a limiting factor. Here is the temperature curve. You can see as the temperature increases, the rate of photosynthesis increases until a certain point where the optimum temperature reached. But then it starts to decrease because stopping altogether. The reason why, when the temperature increases and reaches the optimal point, after that, even though temperature increases, the enzymes started to denature. Therefore, the rate of photosynthesis started to decrease rapidly. Until the optimum temperature is reached, then the rate of photosynthesis decreases. And this is the optimum temperature. The rate of photosynthesis increases at first due to the particles having more kinetic energy to undergo more energetic and successful collisions. As the temperature increases beyond the optimum temperature, the proteins and enzymes are started to denature. Here are some key points. of this experiment. As light intensity increases, the rate of photosynthesis increases by looking at the number bubble produced. As the distance between a plant and a light source increases, the light intensity decreases. Here, what it means that as you move the lamp away from the plant, you're increasing the distance. Therefore, the light intensity decreases, which will affect the rate of photosynthesis. Therefore, the photosynthesis will decrease. The light intensity and the rate of photosynthesis are directly proportional. One increases, then another one will increase at the same rate. When one thing increases, another thing increases. For example, light intensity increases, here the rate of photosynthesis increases, and that's why we call that directly proportional. This will result in a straight line of best fit on the curve going through the origin. Here, if we look at this one, how does the distance affect? Distance of a plant from a light source and the rate of photosynthesis are inversely proportional. When one thing increases, another thing decreases at the same rate. This results in a curved line of the best fit on a graph that has a negative gradient. The relationship here shows the inverse proportional to the distance of the light source and the rate of photosynthesis. Here's a question for you to have a go. What does this graph show? Why does the graph level out at the top? Try yourself now. As the concentration of carbon dioxide increases, the rate of photosynthesis increases until a certain point when the rate of the reaction remains constant. The rate of reaction stops increasing because there is enough carbon dioxide. However, this is not a limiting factor anymore. That could be other two limiting factors, light intensity or the temperature. Now pause the video and try yourself. Why do light intensity, carbon dioxide concentration, temperature, and the amount of chlorophyll affect the rate of photosynthesis? Let's look at the answer now. Light intensity is a limiting factor because in photosynthesis, light provides the energy. That's why photosynthesis is an endothermic reaction. It takes in the light energy. Carbon dioxide concentration, this is a reactant of photosynthesis. Without it, the photosynthesis won't be able to take place. Temperature also affects photosynthesis because it keeps kinetic energy. Therefore, more successful chelation can take place. The amount of chlorophyll also needed to absorb the light energy. If the plant doesn't have right amount of chlorophyll, they won't be able to carry out photosynthesis. The difference between factors and the limiting factors. Factors are things needed for a reaction to take place. That could be any factor for a reaction. However, limiting factor is something needed for a reaction that is preventing the reaction going as quickly as possible. For example, if we look at this, light intensity here is a limiting factor until a certain point. After that, when the curve started to flatten, light intensity is not a limiting factor anymore. Even if you increase the light intensity, the rate of photosynthesis will not increase. The second graph is the same. Carbon dioxide concentration increases and the rate of photosynthesis increases until a certain point. After that, the curve started to flatten. The reason why, even if you increase the carbon dioxide concentration, the rate of photosynthesis will not increase. Therefore, we can say carbon dioxide concentration is not a limiting factor anymore. Therefore, we need to know when factors are limiting factors and when they stop being limiting factors. Here, until the maximum point as the curve increases, light intensity is the limiting factor. When the curve started to flatten, the rate of photosynthesis is not increasing or decreasing. Therefore, we can say light intensity is not a limiting factor. Even if you increase that, the rate of photosynthesis will not have an impact or effect. Look at that. So this will give you the vibe. As the light intensity and carbon dioxide concentration increases, the rate of photosynthesis increases. In these reactions, the reaction can only go as fast as the light intensity and carbon dioxide concentration will allow. They are limiting the rate of photosynthesis until a certain point. When factors are not limiting factors. If you look at this graph, the graph has leveled off, and this is called plateau. Light intensity is still increasing, and at the beginning, as you increase the light intensity until a certain point, the rate of reaction increases. After that, it leveled off. Here, if carbon dioxide concentration, temperature, and the amount of chlorophyll are kept the same, the rate of photosynthesis is now as high as it could be. No matter how much light intensity is increased, the rate of photosynthesis will not increase. The light intensity is no longer a factor when the curve started to flatten. Now, this is for the carbon dioxide concentration. It's essentially the same for carbon dioxide concentration as light intensity. If you add more carbon dioxide concentration, the rate of photosynthesis will increase until a certain point. Carbon dioxide concentration is a limiting factor until that maximum point. If you use a greater concentration of carbon dioxide, the rate of photosynthesis will not increase because carbon dioxide is not a limiting factor anymore when the curve started to flatten. When the temperature is a limiting factor, this graph is quite different than light intensity and carbon dioxide concentration because as the temperature increases, the rate of photosynthesis increases until the temperature reached at its optimum point, that is about 37 to 40 degrees. After that, if the temperature increases further, the rate of photosynthesis decreases because the enzymes are denatured and therefore enzymes will change their shape. The active site won't be able to bind with substrate. So here the temperature is the limiting factor until the optimum temperature. After that, temperature is not a limiting factor. Other two factors are limiting factors, which are light intensity and carbon dioxide concentration. Have a look. Here, the rate started to decrease rapidly. This is a past paper question for you. Let's pause the video and try yourself now. Let's take a look at the answers now. Describe the effect of increasing light intensity on the rate of photosynthesis. You should include numbers from figure 3 in your description. So you look at figure 3 on the right side. You should say that as the light intensity increases, the rate of photosynthesis increases until a certain point. Afterwards, the rate of photosynthesis started to level off or remains constant. even the light intensity goes up, the rate of photosynthesis will not increase. And the point level of point, you're going to say that is about 225 to 240 light units. Next question. As the light intensity of 250 arbitrary units, light is not a limiting factor of photosynthesis. What is the evidence for this in this figure 3? It should say that higher light intensity doesn't affect the rate of photosynthesis anymore, as the light intensity is not a limiting factor. Give two factors that could be limiting the rate of photosynthesis at a light intensity of 250 arbitrary units. The answer for this, it could be carbon dioxide concentration, temperature, amount of chlorophyll, or the water. Could be iron, nutrients, any of these. But ignore if you write on the surface area of the leaf. The stress and challenge question for you. You can see how could the curve be labeled if carbon dioxide were the most important limiting factor here. So you have 1, 2, and 3. One of them is given, that is 30 degree, 0.1% carbon dioxide. Now you're going to use other two to show the curve. So you can see that the top one is 30 degrees Celsius, 0.2% carbon dioxide, then 0.1%, then the temperature is 20 degrees Celsius. Even the carbon dioxide concentration is same. And the last one, you can see that even lower when the carbon dioxide concentration is 0.1 and the temperature is 20 degrees. So you can clearly see that even if you increase the light intensity, the curve is going up, then it started to flatten because the rate of photosynthesis will increase until the light intensity is a limiting factor, when like the carbon dioxide and the temperature are constant. But after that, when carbon dioxide and the temperature is the limiting factor, in that case, even if you increase the light intensity, the rate of photosynthesis will not increase. Here is stress and challenge question of limiting factors. Pause the video and try yourself now. Thank you. Let's check your answer now. This question, this diagram, shows some plants growing in a greenhouse on a hot summer's day. Which one of the following factors is most likely to limit the rate of photosynthesis at this time? Carbon dioxide concentration, light intensity, or temperature? You need to write down the name of the factor and you need to give you a reason. 4 marks, off you go. Here you go with the answer. Now check your answers. This is the last part of photosynthesis topic. The farmers, they use greenhouses because they enable them to control the immediate surroundings of their plants and in some cases protected from damages like the frost or extreme weather conditions like high temperature. The farmers optimize plant growth by using greenhouses. Explain how farmers control these 3 factors: carbon dioxide concentration, light intensity, and temperature. And then what else can be controlled which may not be a limiting factor of photosynthesis rate, but it is essential for plant growth. Let's pause the video and try yourself now. Here, the light coming from the lamps. So the artificial lamp can be used to ensure the light is never a limiting factor. Because in greenhouse gases, you will not run out of light because this is artificially arranged. Carbon dioxide concentration, the air is circulated, and sometimes fossil fuels are burned to enrich it with carbon dioxide. Again, the carbon dioxide concentration won't be a limiting factor because we have enough carbon dioxide provided. Temperature, the glass is able to trap the heat inside the greenhouse gas. Air can be heated by burning fossil fuels too. So the temperature cannot be a limiting factor. So if the farmers, they can manage to get light intensity, carbon dioxide concentration and temperature, therefore they won't be able to suffer from any limiting factor which will limit the rate of photosynthesis. Other two factors like minerals and water. Minerals are as important as plants as they are for humans. Without enough minerals, the plant gets deficiency diseases. For water, the plants need water for growth and photosynthesis, although it is not considered as a limiting factor of photosynthesis. Let's have a look at these 4 questions. Pause the video and try yourself now. Look at the answers now. What do greenhouses help farmers to control? Why do farmers use greenhouses to grow plants? What conditions would give the highest crop yield possible? And what are the benefits of using hydroponics? The benefits of using hydroponics are no need to prepare soil, mineral content tightly controlled, no need to clean plants before sale. The farming and economics. Here, use the knowledge of limiting factors. The farmers can use temperature of 30 degrees Celsius to grow their plants, and they can achieve free crops in a year. In fact, the farmers generally grow their crops at 20 degrees Celsius, even though this only enables them to grow 2 sets of crops. Why is this? Try yourself now. Here you go the answer. Mainly it is difficult to make a profit when higher temperature are used. Carbon dioxide concentration is generally a more important limiting factor than temperature. If farmer is going to use higher temperature to get higher yield, they have to use more money to get the higher temperature in the greenhouse. The main issue of heating greenhouses, our homes are built to keep heat in, and they need a lot of insulation to make the cost effective. Greenhouses have extremely thin walls to let light through, and this means that while they do reduce heat loss, a lot of heat is still released. Here is a question for you. A gardener uses a charcoal stove in his greenhouse. Why is this? And why does he need to be careful? Let's pause the video and try yourself. Check your answer now. A charcoal stove increases the temperature. It also provides carbon dioxide. A raised temperature and increased carbon dioxide concentration increase the rate of photosynthesis. He needs to be careful because if the temperature is too high, the enzymes in his plant will denature and the photosynthesis will be affected, means it will decrease. Here's some past paper questions for you to try. Let's have a go. I'll just show you the answer now. Check yourself. There are 2 more questions. Pause the video and try yourself. Here you go the answers. Check it now. There are one more past paper questions. Let's pause the video and try yourself now. Here go the answers for you. Check yourself.